You ever hear a person say, "Oh, you do rental units, man? I don't want to get a phone call at 7 o'clock on a Saturday night or a Sunday night." It's usually the laundry. It's always something silly. It's a sock that went up over the edge and went into this little machine part that you have to unscrew and pull out with a coat hanger or something like that.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. Hello and welcome to episode 123. My guest today is Ric Conkey. Ric is a real estate appraiser with Real Value Group, and he's a residential real estate appraiser, appraising anything from 1 to 4 units. And we're going to talk about that, but he's also the president of R&M Property Group, LLC, in which he owns 14 multifamily units here in the Grand Rapids area. Ric owns, operates, manages his own multifamily, and has some interesting stories to share with us. And we're also going to talk about Ric's epiphany that he had on retirement goals and his ability to get to his retirement goals. So we have a lot to talk about. Ric, thanks for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I mean, I know you're an investor here in Grand Rapids, but tell our listeners a little bit more.
Well, I grew up in Grand Rapids. Father was a veterinarian here in town, and throughout his life he diversified. And when I was probably under 10, my dad bought his first rental unit over on Plainfield Avenue, and it was quite interesting. But he stuck with it, kept going. At one point, he owned a 30 unit across from St. Mary's Hospital, and that was a lot of work. So it was a 3-story building without an elevator. So he was up the stairs, down the stairs, and we did all that work with him. So
he was managing, and you were right there next to him learning.
My dad was either working as a veterinarian, or he was golfing, or he was working on his rental units. So we grew up knowing that. And I painted, and we cleaned, and painted, and cleaned, and that was kind of our childhood. I mean, we had a lot of fun growing up here in West Michigan, but we always knew the ethics of work, and it's very difficult for my upbringing to pay someone else if you have the ability to do the work yourself. So from that standpoint, I've learned the ethics of doing that hard work, learning the DIY stuff, the plumbing, the electrical, to the degree that I can do it without it being, a hazard to myself or my tenants.
Right. So you're a do-it-yourselfer kind of landlord, property owner.
Yes.
And you learned that from your dad.
I've learned it from my dad, but I've also taken it a step further. You get on Google, you figure out what has to be done. I mean, we do anything from drywall to one of my recent big projects was doing parging, which is walls falling down on old stone walls on the interior, and I'm cementing that back up. So a lot of work. You get your hands dirty, and you just keep learning, and you get done with it, and you feel good about yourself, and you go, I can keep profiting in this thing. So it's a fun growing, learning lifestyle, I guess.
Well, tell us how you got involved in real estate investing. I know you learned it from your dad, but at what point did you start acquiring properties?
My first property was at the age of 19. So I bought a duplex, which was originally a 2-unit. I think this was back in 89. It was a 2-unit on one side, a 3-unit on the other. Already had the 2-unit rented, and then I moved into the 3-unit side and started renting out to my friends. So back in those days, you could afford to have a few friends, pay a couple dollars, and house was paid for. So it kind of grew from there, bought a couple others, sold them for different reasons. I think you learn and grow as a as an investor and figure out what you like and what you don't like. What I didn't like ultimately on that home, and the reason for me selling it, it wasn't because it wasn't profitable. It was a very percentage-wise profitable piece of property. Problem was it ended up being a 5-unit on one side and a 3-unit on the other. The 5-unit, you tend to not get families paying the rent that you want, so you end up getting college students.
You mean a 5-bedroom?
5-bedroom. Sorry, not 5-unit. 5-bedroom, 3-bedroom.
Somehow your duplex went into a 5-unit. So okay, I get it. 5-bedroom on one side. So it sort of got overwhelming with the number of tenants?
It got overwhelming with the babysitting you had to do with the college students that would come in, and they'd rent each room separately. So from that standpoint, I realized I didn't like that. So I backed away from that property, and later on acquired a couple that my dad was selling. He offered them to me, and I took that opportunity and got back into real estate. So I've been doing real estate on and off since, it's got to be 30 plus years now.
Yeah. Well, in '89, you and I are the same age. I mean, you were just out of high school a couple years.
Yeah.
So the fact that you bought a duplex and you're renting it out to friends and college students, that must have been quite a learning experience for you.
Well, it was not only that, but you learn how to drywall, you learn how to clean, you learn how to live on your own. We finished off the attic, so that was me carrying up drywall 3 flights of stairs, sometimes by myself, putting it up and learning and growing. I mean, you get done with that first project and you go, yeah, that looks really good, but man, I wish I had done that differently. Mm-hmm. So you learn those things along the way, and you'll get to a point where you know exactly what you want every time you go into an apartment.
Yeah. So work ethic wise, you seem to have had the work ethic and the skills to at least get the job done and learn how to do it. Maturity wise, were you mature enough to deal with tenants and operate in what is essentially a business?
No. I from a standpoint of having the leases and kind of knowing what I wanted, but you pick up little tricks along the way. For example, for me, I do everything through Rental Properties Owners Association. So I do the leases, and then I do all the legal paperwork, the lead forms and the checklists and all that stuff. So I do that with each and every tenant, make a copy, and then I PDF them off to the tenants. So one of the things I learned was I added in a $150 cleaning fee. Now, at one point, I thought I was the smartest guy in the world, and I refunded that back to the tenant. So the one benefit to that was if they kept the apartment clean, I would refund it. And I put a little note in my lease to refund that back to them. The problem was at one point I realized I can just take that cleaning fee and have a cleaning company come in and do, I don't want to say 100% of the work, because they come in and they clean the bathrooms and the kitchens and the stoves and everything that my wife and I do not like to do. The problem is nobody does as good a job as my wife and I do, especially my wife. She can see something. She'll always ask me when I go in there and check it out. She'll go, how's the place look? I'm like, it looks really good. I'm going to refund them everything back. She goes, is it your clean or my clean? So I learned that over time, my clean is not clean. So it's better than the tenants, just not as good as my wife. And so she'll look at cleaning companies and go, why are we paying this extra money for something that we have to come in and clean anyway? The problem is when you self-manage, when you get into those apartments, your checklist becomes, I'm kind of a squirrel. I go in there and I've got my checklist in my head, and I got to paint, I got to mud, I have to clean the floors, I have to do the stoves and the everything that you have your list. We always replace mini blinds, and it's just all those things you have to do. Well, the first thing my wife always does is she cleans. Well, then we dirty up cleaning, and then we have to really re-clean again. So it was always, why are we doing that, because she won't go in and she won't get her body dirty from a tenant. She wants to get in there, make it our clean, and then she'll do her work.
It's got to be at a certain level of cleanliness before
yes.
she wants to even address the issues that need to be taken care of.
So one of the challenges we have, and maybe someone out there can give me a call and let me know if they have a really good cleaning company. I have a hard time. I have very limited windows sometimes between a person moving out and a person moving in. I talk to other landlords and I see spreadsheets from other people, and I always wonder why people have sometimes a 15% ratio on their on not having their apartments rented.
Oh, like a 15% vacancy?
Yeah, that's mind-boggling to me, because I grew up with, I'm advertising a month before somebody even moves out. I've got commitment, especially today with your emails and text messages. I have that confirmation that they are moving out. So first thing I do is I go to Craigslist. I add in all my beautiful pictures that I took when I cleaned it the time before. Add them in there. I have them on my computer on my desktop. I put all my comments in. I make myself accessible. I have an apartment coming open in a couple of weeks. Same thing. I've got probably 4 people looking at it today between 4 and 4:30. I coordinated with the tenant. They work with me. I work with them. Life is easy.
So you have a system in place that allows you to turn your units very quickly. When someone moves out, you get in there and clean, you do all the work that needs to be done, and you get a new tenant in there as soon as possible.
My only stress level when it comes to that is sometimes I'll sign the lease for the first of the month, but I'll make sure I write all my notes in there. I'll flip the keys to you right away if you want to just flip and turn, but nobody wants to. They're like, listen, I can work with you for a couple of days. Mm-hmm. So they give me a couple of days to clean it.
Yeah.
And when you get a cleaning crew, I tried this past year for the first time coming in with a cleaning crew. They just don't show up, or they don't show up on time, or their window isn't the same as my window. And I'm like, guys, I scheduled this 2 weeks ago. So I just haven't found that good relationship yet to allow me to take a little hands-off approach.
Right, to systematize it even more so that you don't have to do it yourself.
Right.
Yeah, well, we talked about this a couple months ago because we were talking on the phone, and you were at one of your properties waiting for the cleaning crew to show up.
Oh, yeah. I probably had my blood boiling a little bit because I ended up cleaning the apartment probably 80% before they even showed up.
Yeah, which was funny to me because you were telling me that, like, you're waiting for the cleaning crew to show up. They're late, and you've done most of the work at that point.
Yeah.
So we were talking about like having some sort of coded entry or some sort of access so they could come at any time and you wouldn't have to sit there waiting to let them in. Did you ever resolve that?
No. Coded entry, and I think we discussed this at the time, for me isn't cost effective. I'm 10 minutes away, so anytime I need to go down there, I can just meet up with someone, or I can typically coordinate it. As far as the key code, those things run $75 to $125 plus per key entry system. So to me, the investment is that's a big investment to justify, because you not only have to do that, but if you're going to do that on the entry for the units, some of my units I have more than one, so I have more than one entry. Some of them I have doors going to the basement and doors going to garages and things like that. Maybe those I might do at some point, just so I don't have to constantly go get a key made when somebody moves out. I can just change the code and everybody will know the new code. So that might make sense at some point. But overall for the apartments, I can see that as being a little too much. I have a good relationship with a key guy. So one of the things that I do that has worked really well for me is I have all the keys in my place master keyed. I only have to have a handful of keys on my keychain. I don't have to have a million. Like when I first started, I was walking around with a keychain that went down to my knee.
For every unit, huh?
Yeah. And then you're constantly looking through them and you're going, okay, did I stamp this one? Did I not mark this one? What key does this one go to? And you walk around and you're spending an afternoon trying to figure out what key went to what door.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. Having a master key is essential if you've got a number of units.
Absolutely. So I'll never end up walking away from that concept unless I eventually go into doing the key code, and then you have to have a master list if you're going to do the key code, because you're going to go, okay, I don't know what your code is.
Yeah.
I don't have that memory. I can do a master key and it works well for me.
So you still have not figured out this cleaning conundrum, how to get a cleaning crew in there quickly and efficiently that shows up on time and does the
Finding
job
a
you
good
want them to
cleaning
do.
crew. And I understand from a standpoint of management of a cleaning crew, but you know, you're dealing with a lot of babysitting in that industry as well. So, I mean, it's unless you can find a good person that is, I think, a 1 or 2 man show that can give you their word and say, hey, I'll be there. If they're managing a bunch of, you know, mothers, daughters, brothers, sisters, that just don't show up on time or don't understand the schedule, which was the thing that happened when you came over. That individual thought it was another house, so she was over working on another house. And luckily, I picked up the phone.
Yeah. What about, we were talking about the washer and dryer. You're in the process of putting a coin-operated washer and dryer in one of your properties. Can I talk about that? Because that's something we haven't really talked about, but laundry and installing your own laundry, there's different ways to go about it and make money off of it.
Yeah, so we've always had a coin-operated washer and dryer in the basement. On the 2 houses, I have 3 homes, just so you understand. And
where are they located?
So they're down in Heritage Hill. So I have
very, very nice homes, by the way, in a very nice part of Heritage Hill. So prime locations.
Yeah, I can't take all the credit because my father's owned those for years, and he's done my mother and father have been very hands-on and have been very good about managing those and keeping them up well. So from that standpoint, it was a very good handoff from him going into his, late retirement. Worked out well for both of us. But as far as the laundry, we've always had coin-operated washer and dryer. Those have been getting older and older, and I've had more issues. Finally, this past week, and we've made decent money, but you get that phone call, and when you ever hear a person say, "Oh, you do rental units, man," I don't want to get a phone call at 7:00 on a Saturday night or a Sunday night. It's usually the laundry. So that's a double-edged sword. If
So
you want to make
you own the laundry machines, and you have to service them too, huh?
And if you want to make a few extra bucks throughout the year, I mean, we've gone on a couple of vacations here and there, just small ones, just from the coins.
Wow.
Nothing major, but it was always nice. You go home with a big bag of coins from time to time. You're like, this is a little extra money. But it gets a little annoying from time to time. It's always something silly. It's always a sock that went up over the edge and went into this little machine part that you have to unscrew and pull out with a coat hanger or something like that. And now it's my washer. The washer is old, and they came out and said, yeah, we don't make this part anymore. So my choice was either to spend another $1,000, $1,200 just on a commercial grade dryer. If I said washer, it was a dryer that burned up. Or this other building that I bought a year and a half ago had a commitment or a contract with Garrett's Appliance, and they have two washer and dryer in the basement. They take care of everything. There's a sign there that says, any issues, give Garrett's Appliance a call.
Right.
So I've got another company that I'm working with that wanted to get into the business, and they made me a good offer. They're bringing in 2 new washer and dryers this afternoon, and so I'm giving them an opportunity, a local company, a couple of younger guys that want to get started. And I said, yeah, I'll be your guinea pig.
Okay.
So I like Garrett's. I like these guys as well, and I thought I'd give them an opportunity. And
so the benefit there is that they provide and service the washer and dryer.
they're probably putting in $2,500 to $3,000 worth of equipment.
Yeah. So it's an investment for them. And then what kind of split do you guys?
We do a 50-50 split.
50-50 split.
So I pay the electric and water and gas for whatever's necessary to run them. I have to provide the area for them. They come in quarterly, clean out the machines, and they send me a check.
Nice.
So any issues, they keep it up clean. They keep the vents clean. They make sure they're running properly, and I just don't have to deal with it. So do I miss a few extra dollars? Yeah. But it's a monkey off my back that I'm pretty happy is off my back.
It's one less thing you'll be getting a phone call about.
Yeah. You know, I've got 14 units. Luckily, we were able to purchase these houses where it's 1, 2, 3 in a row. Not very many homeowners can do that. Typically, they're one on this corner, one 20 minutes away, one 10 minutes away. I don't have to do that. So I'm walking up and down the street. You'll see me on my corner daily.
Yeah, it's interesting because you have a 6-unit and a 4-unit right next to each other, right? Or
and then another 6-unit that we purchased a year and a half ago.
Oh no, it's a 6-unit and a duplex.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So you originally had a 6-unit and a duplex right next to each other.
Correct.
And then the 4-unit next door, the owner sold it to you.
Yes, and he was similar to my father, older gentleman. He was originally a builder. So when I went to look at that house, I knew that it had good bones, it had good structure. He was always out there. He was always cleaning. So I knew that, as you and I discussed, I paid a little bit of a premium for that, but I'm a long-term investor. I'm not a flipper. I see these as retirement. So I could see the value of spending a little bit more today and kick myself 5 years from now if I didn't. So I'm glad I purchased them. I'm profitable on all the homes at this point, but Heritage Hill, you got to do a little bit more work. I don't mind doing it. I kind of enjoy it. It's the pride of ownership. It's walking up and down the street. I have my American flags down the row, and every time I pull up, I see my American flags, and I go out there and I unravel them if they're hanging all wound up from the wind. But I enjoy going to those houses and knowing that when I get to retirement, I know what my income is. I know when my current faucet of income is turned off, I know what my income will be when I retire, or at least in today's value.
Yeah, let's talk about that retirement and the epiphany that you had, because we were talking about that before we started recording. You've come up with kind of a specific plan or idea about retirement. Can you discuss that?
Absolutely. So the epiphany I had was, I have a 23-year-old and a 26-year-old right now, 24-year-old and 26-year-old. And
kids.
Children, yes. So when you're talking to them, you're trying to get them to see some of the things you didn't see at their age. And you're trying to get them to open their eyes and hopefully look at, I wouldn't say investing, but money management better than what you did when you were their age. So, I was never my wife and I, because I was always in sales, we were always, okay, everything will be a month from now, or 6 months from now, or 3 months from now, or next year. And, when we have more money, we're going to do this. So one of the things I always teach them is, put your money away, put a percentage away, because if you start now when you're young, you'll never realize that you're missing out on anything. If you do it later and you start putting a percentage away, you're like, I can't afford it. So you got to start that young. So one of the things, my epiphany that I had was real estate. When I really didn't have it until I purchased the 8 units for my father. I'd gotten out for a little bit for specific reasons, got back in when he gave me the opportunity. And
this was about 3 years ago?
This was about 3 years ago. So would I be in a much better position if I had done it sooner? I actually owned them at one point, sold them back to him. I'd be in a much better position today if I had that epiphany sooner. The epiphany is, I'm 48 years old. You start to realize that I'm only 15, 20 years away from retirement. What are we going to do? If you don't have those nest eggs set up, or even if you do have a nest egg set up, I did investments for a short period of time, and one of the things we always talked about with our clients was, what are you going to do? How are you going to get there? Even once you're there, I think was the biggest epiphany that every client had was, how do you spend it? And most people don't understand the transition from their current lifestyle to retirement. And the transition is knowing what you give yourself permission to spend. If you have $1 million in the bank, typically the average investor or the average advisor would tell you 3 to 5%. So you have $1 million and you're only giving yourself permission to spend $30,000 a year, maybe $50,000. The reason for that is you don't know how long you're going to live. So your principal has to last you for the rest of your life. Could be 5 years, could be 30 years. So you're never able to truly tap into that principal. So with real estate, if I had $1 million in real estate, I have a percentage, at least when I look at my percentages from my 14 units that I currently have, I have probably close to $750,000, $800,000 in investments there. And I'm currently taking in, I want to say 130, give or take. So I have costs, I have taxes, I have utilities, I have upkeep. Now that all, as I get into retirement, depends on whether I continue to manage myself or do I flip it over to a management company. There's pros and cons to both. As we discussed earlier, I think I'm extremely superior in keeping my places rented. I talk to people that use management companies all the time, and their percentages are much lower than mine. It's because they don't have the saleability that I have. Maybe it's the salesman in me, I don't know. But I almost always paint every time. I make sure everything's looking good. I check my plumbing. I do the caulking in the tubs. I make sure everything's dialed in when people come in and see the place. And because it's in Heritage Hill, I'm able to talk about walking distance to downtown. I'm able to talk about 2 blocks from Martha's Vineyard. People love that. People, I keep my places well lit. I have 3 Mercury lights on my houses, so nobody ever feels scared when they're walking around in the evening. They're well lit on the street anyway. So the benefits of me selling all that stuff helps me keep my places rented very, very well. I mean, I really twitch when I have a place open. And, we've got a lot going on downtown Grand Rapids. not only in the investment of what the community has done for bars and restaurants and all the things that are going on, but we also have these other companies bringing in multiple units down there. So my wife and I have this conversation all the time. She's on one side, she's talking about, we got to keep our rents reasonable. I, on the other hand, I'll look on Craigslist, I'll see what rents are going for. And every time I put it low, I think I'm doing a disservice to myself for two reasons. The quality of tenants, the higher you keep the rents, the better they pay. But you have to have your places dialed in to make those rents count for them. And then you got to take care of them. You got to be there when things happen. So am I perfect? No. Do I try to be? Yeah. I'm there for my tenants. If they text me, sometimes people text me. Some people don't have text etiquette. They'll text me very early in the morning and very late at night. And I try to put a stop to that.
So what's going back to the epiphany about retirement? Is it just getting your properties buttoned up and operating smoothly, and being able to retire off the cash flow?
It's looking at the percentage difference is the huge epiphany. I went into a little bit of a tangent there, but it truly is looking at 3 to 5% on $1 million over here, or less than $1 million in my epiphany. I'm looking at the equivalent of spendable income of 3 to 4 million in the bank with a minimal investment. So,
and that spendable income is from the cash flow?
Absolutely.
Right.
So once they're paid off, I'll have the equivalent of what somebody has to save up over on this nest egg over here. And then you constantly are increasing in. So you look at today. So I have that net income less costs. So I'm doing okay, but I'm if I had a major issue, I'd be in trouble. So, somebody that can afford to go buy a house and have that rental income, they're much better off than I am. But I feel I'm fairly comfortable at this point, as long as no hiccups happen between now and retirement. But if you look at that retirement 20 years from now, so I have the income now, I know what my rents are. So it's written in stone unless I don't keep them running and I don't do my job and I fail as a property owner, a landlord, a management company, all rolled into one. If I fail at what I'm doing, that's the only downfall. I continue on the path that I'm doing, which I feel like I've done a fantastic job in my opinion, but I'm my best advocate. You fast forward 20 years from now, those rents, the only way that they're not going to increase with the economy is me as the homeowner. Maybe I have a 15-year tenant, which I typically don't in Heritage Hill. I usually have 1, 2, 3-year tenants. Flip it, look at the local Craigslist or whatever is showing the rents, and I increase appropriately for that apartment. Now, do I need to put a new fridge in? Do I need to put a new stove in? Do I need to change the colors of the apartment? Maybe. But if that increases the rents $100 a month, that's $1,200 a year. You add that to your portfolio for 14 units, the math adds up over time. You just see a lot of these senior owners that have owned the houses and they like a tenant for 20 years. And, that's the only time I see that they don't keep up with their rents. So
yeah, they keep the rents low because
I'm not that age yet, so I don't know what I'm going to be in 20 years. Maybe I'll be that guy that likes long-term tenants better.
Yeah. So, I think as far as that plan, the nice thing about that is you're not spending down your equity when you own these properties. You're living off the cash flow that's thrown off, especially in the more you have them paid off, these properties paid off, the more cash flow there's going to be for you.
Absolutely.
But as you spend that cash flow, the value of the properties and the equity you have in those properties remains and increases. The other way, if you just have $1 million in the bank and you're spending 3 to 5% a year, well, you're spending that down, aren't you? But the one thing I will poke one hole in that, and that is your assumption that you will always be managing the property at just to top quality, and maintaining them the way you're maintaining them now, because you mentioned the word failure. Like you would have to fail as the property owner, but sometimes it's not a matter of failure. You could get sick. You could be, for whatever reason, unable to manage your properties. And then what do you do?
Well, that's when you have to look into a management company, or you have somebody trustworthy. Just about everybody in my family has rental properties. Most of them are still managed by my father, who's 84 years old. So he helps out. He does stuff. He has people come in and do certain work, and a lot of them will step in at the time and help out when they need to as well. So up until now, my wife and I do a lot of the work ourselves. My wife is working more over the last couple of years, so I've taken on the role of doing both cleaning and maintenance as well as those properties turn. We always get the places flipped better when she helps out because she does a better job cleaning. And she always sees things that I don't. She's like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? So I like her second set of eyes, and I definitely like her.
Now, talk a little bit about Monique, your wife. How do you guys split up the responsibilities when it comes to managing the properties?
Oh, she's awesome. She does all the bills. So everything comes in. She sends off the mortgages and all the utilities. And so I don't see that stuff on a daily basis, but she doesn't see me. She knows I'm there all the time. I'm mowing the lawns. I'm painting. I'm painting interior and exterior. I'm doing the leases. I'm setting up the marketing and advertising. Typically, I do a lot of that through Craigslist. Sometimes I'll put a sign out on the side of the building. I typically get better qualified tenants from Craigslist because they know all the information. They've seen the pictures of the apartment. It's not okay, I have to tell you the rent. I have to explain to you it's a studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and then 20 minutes later find out that it doesn't work for them. Mm-hmm. So at least I've weeded through that. I can typically I'll put the sign on the building if I haven't rented the apartment within the first 3 or 4 people, because typically I do.
Wow.
I mean, you meet them up. I've got 3 or 4 people coming out this afternoon. I'll be surprised if it's not rented by the end of the day. Just seems to work out that way. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's my charming personality.
What are you renting out right now?
I have a studio.
What are you asking for it?
$725. Okay. So I've had it rented for a year for $725. It's a nice apartment. We renovated. It was kind of neat. We on the second floor of this 6-unit, we were lucky enough to talk to some people at Lowe's one day when they were renovating and moving out their old kitchens. So they were only big enough for these small apartments. Well, my 1 bedrooms in my studio and on this apartment building are small. So got them for 3 units, almost less than $1,000.
Wow.
Went in there. I have a couple of war wounds from nails going through the arm and stuff like that. But you live and learn when you're pulling those cabinets out. Be careful. Mm-hmm. Learned how to do some stuff that I hadn't done before there. But it's a beautiful kitchen. We've got a dining room area, small kitchen, and then a big pantry area. And then, as you know, a studio is your living room and your kitchen are all in one. So then it has a small bathroom. So everything I do today, gray walls, white trim, in the main part of the house, and then the bathroom is light blue walls, white trim. So just kind of pops. It shows well. I do it with everything. I have almost all of them to that color combination. So when I go in next time, I'm just touching up the main part of the wall. I'm not cutting in on the edges with the trim. That stuff takes forever. My wife and I, our first go around with the apartments, we were new colors in every apartment. Every time she saw something on a show, we got to do this, we got to do that. That just took so much time and energy. Now I can just go in and zip with my walls with a roller, and it smells clean, it looks good.
Standardize the colors.
Yeah, and to me, it's good for those old houses to have a fresh coat of paint on them. If you don't paint them, I've noticed you get cracked walls. It's like the lifeblood of the house is paint, and a good quality paint. You know, I've worked with O'Leary's. I'm currently more with Sherwin-Williams right now, just because they're off of Alpine. They do a great job. They have me under an account with our rental account, and I can go in and say, I need my brown, I need my green, I need my burgundy, and they have it ready within a matter of minutes. And they do a really good job. So I've been very pleased with Sherwin-Williams so far.
Great. Well, let's switch gears a little bit here, because you're also a appraiser.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, what exactly do you do? Or I know what an appraiser does, but from your perspective, what do you do?
Well, a lot of people think appraiser. They have a misconception. They actually believe that we're going in and inspecting the house, and we're looking over, foundation issues and things like that. Appraisal is basically an opinion of value. An opinion of value is based off of facts. The facts are true comparable sales. And the comparable sales are going to start with location, location, location. And then it's going to be based on design style, beds and baths, and some of that's above grade. A lot of people look at a 5-bedroom and go, hey, I have a 5-bedroom. Well, you only have 1 up and 4 down on the MLS. People are looking for a 5-bedroom house, and you're showing up as a 1-bedroom. You've got to understand what a true comparable is, and that is the art and science of a good appraiser, is finding the proper comparables.
And you appraise everything from single-family homes to 4 units. Do you do it both for investors and homeowners?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So typically with a homeowner, they're going to get their house refinanced. Somebody's buying a house through a bank or some institution. Those institutions are going to round robin their group of appraisers. The ones that I can work with typically are somebody that says, hey, I want to know the value of my house. I'm selling it to a family member. Or they're just doing it for an individual purpose, whatever it is. We work with a lot of divorce attorneys. Typically, you need one for one spouse and one for the other. We do something a little different out of the ordinary for divorce attorneys, and for that situation, we'll actually do a short video showing our thought process behind how we got there, and potentially how the spouse appraiser may be looking in that area. Many appraisals can be adjusted. For example, the area you're located in, you could go a city block and $50,000, $100,000 difference. You have to be very careful of boundaries. You have to be very careful of lakes, highways, and your proximity to them.
Because all of that affects the appraisal?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So if you see an appraisal come in for a spouse, it's not that we're an advocate either way, but we're giving a bird's eye view and saying, here's how you can look at the area. If somebody's going to choose these houses over in this area, they're going to increase or decrease. And whatever you're trying to find the motivation of as an advocate, them being the advocate for their client, they need to know that before going into court. So we say, here's a bird's eye view to show those areas, and use this information as it makes sense to you, but here is our window of appraisal. So
for investors or even homeowners who are getting an appraisal for a refi or whatever, and they want the appraisal to come in, at a number where that they think is what they have in their mind. Sometimes they get disappointed because the appraisal comes in low. Mm-hmm. But maybe they haven't given you all the information, like they just put a new roof on, or there's some upgrades to the house. What kind of information can investors and homeowners give you that will help you, get closer to the number that they have in mind?
Well, the first questions we always ask when we go in, especially if the homeowner's there or if they provide it ahead of time, is what do we not see that can add value to the home, such as underground sprinkling, in-house vacuum, things like that. There's not a lot they can do because everything is based on quality and condition. So, for example, if I'll think of a house that I'm working on right now, everything is a bi-level. I'm able to find plenty of bi-levels within the community. It's also a site condo, so it's a PUD.
Planned Urban Development?
Yes. Within that, you're trying to find similarities of. I was able to find plenty within a mile radius, actually plenty within the actual neighborhood of that subject. And so we kind of go out from there. When you're looking at them, I was able to go on the MLS. I'm able to look at quality and condition based on the information given there. I don't go into subject or to comparable sales that I'm looking at. I only go into the subject being the client's property that I'm appraising. So when I look at that, I have quality of countertops in the kitchen, the cabinets, the flooring, the wall coverings. Those are always going to be based on quality and condition, and there is a C1 to C5 rating. So you may have the perfect house, and you might think that your house is worth way more than everybody else's, but what if all the houses I found within a very close proximity, same style house, same builder, beds, baths, everything's the same, but they have a higher quality rating. They went custom where you went very nice, but they have custom cabinets. They have granite countertops. They have, top of the line appliances. I have to adjust based on the information given. The information is taken from facts. So typically if we see someone that is not happy with their appraisal, they're no offense to anyone, but they're typically basing that off of emotion, or feelings, or, hey, I think that this information over here is, I got this house over here. Yes, but it's further away. It's a different style home, where I was able to find these houses that were built within the last, or sold within the last 3 months. The house you're pointing at was sold a year ago. So we can usually find information if we have a nice conversation and say, I just found different facts that subvent the information that you're giving me. It's not that I'm discrediting what you have. It's a nice house, and I would love to use that information, but we're using this information here because the bank is going to come back and go, why didn't you use this one? There is the defining characteristic of why we may choose these houses here over this one way outside the circle. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think people tend to have irrational expectations and beliefs in what their property is actually worth, and what you have a very somewhat scientific method of coming in and looking at the data and saying, here's what the numbers point to.
It is art and science, but it is based off of facts. And we have to back up those facts. So if we ever have to go into court, we have to be able to justify why we came up with a number we came up with.
And in your case, because you work with a lot of divorce lawyers, seems like there's opportunity for you to end up in court.
Absolutely. So we're always as fair as we can be, but we don't want to unjustly change the market. Our job is to show the facts and say, because the banks are trying to hedge their bets. They're saying, we want boots on the ground. We want somebody to put eyes on this property and say, is this a good decision for us to give this money to this individual over here? So there's a lot of people counting on us doing the proper evaluation.
So, Rick, if someone wanted to get a hold of you for your services, your appraisal services, or they have a really good cleaning company they want to recommend to you, what's the best way for them to do so?
I can be reached by text, cell phone, 616-813-8952, or they can reach me at rconkey, that's RCONKEY, at Comcast.net.
Okay. Well, Rick, I want to thank you for taking the time to just share your stories with us about owning multifamily and the 14 units that you purchased all together there neatly in a row on the corner with the American flags. I actually know those properties well, and you're doing a great job with them. And thanks for giving us some insight as well into the appraisal process. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you. It was fun.
This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.